Hi, and welcome to ABCs of Autism. Today is the letter H for homeschooling. I'm Dr. Lynette Louise. A lot of people call me the brain broad because I'm into brain function, and as today's clip is going to teach you, I can be a bit of a broad. So I thought about this, right? How am I going to help people out there who are stuck at home, social distancing, trying to figure out homeschooling when that was never the way they did it, and deal with an entire spectrum of everyone from the low-functioning child who can barely handle his toileting and is putting feces on the wall and has no language at all, to the high-functioning child who's just a little bit sort of rigid and asking the same question over and over again and has a very definite opinion about everything in life that they're interested in. And I thought, today I'm going to tell you my story. Just very quickly, I got to fit it into 4 minutes, so I'm going to leave a lot out. But I moved from Canada to the States. I had all these children. I had adopted 4 multiply handicapped children. 6 were adopted, but 4 were boys that were multiply handicapped and on the spectrum of autism. So all 4 have fetal alcohol syndrome as well as autism. And then there's some other disabilities on top of that, depending on which child we're talking about. So you can imagine I had this really big job to do. And of course, I tried the traditional route. I tried mainstreaming. I tried segregated schooling. I tried all those things. And one day I was sitting at a IEP, the dreaded IEP, and for those of you who are in different countries, they're called different things. It's just a meeting about the child and, you know, how they're progressing and what the teachers are struggling with and what they want to do differently. And I looked around at all the teachers and I had heard something that maybe I hadn't wanted to hear before. And I just looked at them all one at a time and said, "Do you like my son?" And we were talking about one particular son at the time, and they all averted their gaze and started to sort of go, right? And that was the moment I realized I was about to start homeschooling. So I said, right there, "How do I get them out of school and start homeschooling?" And he says, "All you do is tell us." And I said, "I declare we are homeschooling. Come on, kids." I took that child with me, went and got the rest of them, and out we went. Of course, that night I was like, what am I going to do? Well, it was very creative. I decided to live in an RV. I did all kinds of stuff, things that you can't replicate. But what I do want to help you understand is my dilemma was, how do I apply it to all these different functioning levels? My oldest son was low functioning. My youngest son was extremely typically autistic and also had fetal alcohol syndrome and Tourette's. My 2 middle sons were kind of in the middle in their functioning level. So I had the spectrum in my home to deal with homeschooling. Well, it started with a schedule and it started with a concept. The concept was, I'm only going to teach them what they need to know. They need to know how to read and write. They need to know how to talk. They need to know how to be acceptable in public. They need to know how to be making a friend, even if it's only one. So I figured out what they needed to know and I threw out the rest. Social studies was unimportant unless my child was into social studies. Geography, unimportant unless it was my middle child, because he loved geography. So we learned about the states by traveling the states. We learned geography by living through it. We camped on mountaintops. We camped in desert areas. We went on shorelines. He read the map. We learned all about the geography of America and Canada, and that was his homeschooling experience. I broke it down into, I only have one minute left. This is going to be a long video. I just know it. I'm getting a signal. Okay, I broke it down like this. I went, you each get 2 hours one-on-one with me. So that's 8 hours a day. And at the end of the day, we're going to come together and we're going to do a group activity. So 2 hours with each one doing what they like to do. My youngest was into the number 1985. I don't know how I did it, but for 2 hours, we would talk about 1985. We would draw 1985. We would make models of 1985. We would look up the history of 1985, what was happening in 1985. We made songs about 1985. And after a while, we could do 1986 and 1984 and 1983. And we grew it and we changed it. But he loved to talk about the year of his birth, 1985. And so I brought in all the subjects I could surrounding 1985. Then I gave him a job to do for while I went and saw another brother. Now, my low-functioning son, I kind of fell asleep a lot of times. So we're not perfect, right? I'd be sitting there and I'd be trying to do what he was into, but he was into doing this, and it got a little bit hypnotic, and I'd fall asleep, and I'd wake up and go, oh, hi. Let's try saying, and it was difficult. It was difficult to pull it out of myself. How do I make this fun? Until one day I sang a song to him. And he lit up. For some reason, it's the song from Ice Castles by Melissa Manchester. I'm going to go over time, Shay. Stop signaling me. For some reason, he fell in love with that song. And we heard Through the Eyes of Love at least 1,000,000 times. We sang it, we wrote it down, we put it on, we got the CDs, we put it on repeat. So as you walked through the house, all you heard was over and over again, Through the Eyes of Love. But from that, he grew an interest in all the music and runs his own radio. And sure, it's not much, it's very tangible if you compare it to someone else's age. But for him, it was a lot. And he talks, though not many people understand him, to be perfectly honest. He does gesture language, and that was a godsend. So with someone very low functioning, assuming they don't understand is wrong. They usually do. You have to start as if they understand the whole thing and then simplify it. But add gestures, like how I'm using my hands all the time. You want to add gesture language, not perfect sign language, not even approximated sign language. Gesture language is language. If they point at something, they told you something. Okay? All right. Now, I'm going to go quickly through the other ones. So my middle son, he really liked cars. And so he talked in car talk. And he would say, wow, you're quite a Mercedes today, or Mom, you're being a Ford. And that was a great insult. It still is. We tease him about it all the time, even though he's a fully successful man. But he's way into cars still. What you love perseveres. So let's work with it. And we used to do what I called walk and talks, because he did better when he walked. He was more able to communicate with me. And I'd assign him jobs like, okay, I'm coming onto a car lot and you want to sell me that Chevy. Convince me, right? And so we built it from there. My other son was into science, and he thought he was a great scientist and that he had developed the smell of autumn leaf perfume because we picked autumn leaves and we stuck them in a pot of water like you do with a 2-year-old and mixed it up and smelled it. But from this love, I was able to help him to generalize and grow. And I mean, he has a wife and a house and a child, and he's a helicopter mechanic. It's all very doable. And what I want to tell you is, when they were at school, they weren't much liked. But when they were at home, they were loved. Even when I was being abroad and being very tough with them. At the end of the day, I insisted on a group activity, and it would be something simple like Red Rover, we call so-and-so over, and they'd have to run and break through the line, or we'd just kick a ball around, or, sit around the campfire. And when they weren't the one getting the one-on-one, my lovely daughter would oversee them as they did the assignment that I had given them from the day's fun. So there you have it. I was busy. It was scheduled, and I took 2 days off a week to go, but everything got better because of it. So instead of feeling lost and angry and overwhelmed, embrace it, sit down, make a plan, and be okay. When you're a bit of a broad, or for guys, I guess it would be, I don't want to swear. It's okay if you make a mistake, if you have a rough day. If you do, if you say, I'm just too depressed today, I'm just too down, I just can't do it, invite them into that. have a popcorn movie party, and talk about the movies. I'm Dr. Lynette Louise. You've been watching the ABCs of Autism. Please do not forget to like and subscribe.